Okay, so welcome back everybody. And this video is going to be pretty serious and controversial. I mean, I do make controversial shit, but this video is going to be very controversial because we're going to be talking about the door to pedophilia. Okay. In my previous video on Netflix's movie Cuties, I mentioned the strategy to pedophilia, the door to pedophilia. And now I'm going to be breaking that down with more detail now. The strategy is to subtly, and the key word is subtly, change the way people act and change the way people respond. So they can stay the same, but they change the way people act and respond subtly. There are some people who want to just bust the door open. Like, let's take a look at our guy over here, Nathan Larson. Nathan Larson has been reported saying that Nathan Larson was arrested for 16 months for sending a threatening message to the Secret Service threatening to kill Barack Obama during his time as president. He ran for Virginia congressman trying to enable white supremacy and pedophilia. His campaign manifesto says he is a fan of the Nazi leader Adolf Hitler. Larson has stated he wants to restore benevolent white supremacy, rebuild the patriarchy, eliminate child labor laws, legalize early marriage. He also advocates for a legalization of incest and child pornography. When asked if he is a pedophile or just wrote about pedophilic sex fantasies, Larson told HuffPost Thursday, "It's a mix of both. When people go over the top, there's a grain of truth to what they say." Messed up, but I'm going to show you guys a video of him actually backing up his desire for open incest and pedophilia.
Sexual relations with your own children.
Like, I would favor, like, legalizing incest.
Why is that?
Just because personal freedom.
What about the children's rights? Wouldn't that be rape to have sex with a child?
Well, like with girls, I mean, I just believe that it should be for fathers to make those decisions.
The thing is, Larson's strategy won't work because it's too open. That's not the strategy of most pedophiles. Most pedophiles are very subtle with their things. Most pedophiles are trying to crack open the door, not bust it open. They're trying to crack open the door, and their strategy is to use the burning two ends of the same candle technique. One end of the candle is the over-sexualization of children, which is what that previous video was about from Netflix. That's the over-sexualization of children. Make children more sexualized, hypersexualized at a very young age. And the other end is to water down the term pedophilia. So when adult hears the word pedophile, they don't automatically think of something bad. Now I'm going to read for you guys the New York Times article, "Pedophilia is not a crime, it's a mental disorder." Okay, for the sake of copyright issues, I'm not going to be showing the article, but I will link them down in the description. I'm just going to be showing like a small little caption, and then I'm going to read to you the articles. I'm going to read one article in totality, and then I'm going to read bits of other articles, and I want you guys to pay attention to the theme of each and every one of these articles. It starts off with, think back to your childhood crush. Maybe it was a classmate or a friend next door. Most likely, through school and into your adulthood, your affections continue to focus in your approximate age group. But imagine if they did not. By some estimates, 1% of male population continues long after puberty to find themselves attracted to prepubescent children. These people are living with pedophilia, a sexual attraction to prepubescents that often constitutes a mental illness. Unfortunately, our laws are failing them and consequently ignoring opportunities to prevent child abuse. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorder defines pedophilia as an intense and recurrent sexual interest, in prepubescence, and a disorder if it causes a person marked distress or interpersonal difficulties, or if a person acts on his interests. Yet our laws ignore pedophilia until after the commission of sexual offense, emphasizing punishment, not prevention. Part of the failure stems from the misconception that pedophilia is the same as child molestation. See, what I tell you guys, what I tell you. one can live with pedophilia and not act on it. Sites like Virtuous Pedophiles, there is a site called Virtuous Pedophiles, provide support for pedophiles who do not molest children and believe sex with children is wrong. It is not that these individuals are inactive or non-practicing pedophiles, but rather that pedophilia is a status and not an act. The fact research shows about half of child molesters are not sexually attracted to their victims. The second misconception of pedophilia is a choice. Recent research, while often limited to sex offenders because of the stigma of pedophilia, suggests that the disorder may have neurological origins. Pedophilia could result from a failure in the brain to identify which environmental stimuli should provide sexual responses. MRIs of sex offenders with pedophilia show fewer of the natural pathways known as white matter in their brain. Men with pedophilia are three times more likely to be left-handed or Men with pedophilia are three times more likely to be left-handed or ambidextrous, which means using your left and your right hand, both. A finding that strongly suggests a neurological cause. Some findings also suggest that disturbances in neurodeveloped or maternal or early childhood causes the risk of pedophilia. Studies have also shown that men with pedophilia have, on average, lower test scores of visual spatial availability and verbal memory. The Virtuous Pedophiles website is full of testimonies from people who vow never to touch a child, yet live in terror. They must hide their disorder from everyone they know or risk losing educational and job opportunities and face the prospect of harassment and even violence. Many feel isolated. Some contemplate suicide. The psychiatrist Jesse Buring, I think I'm pronouncing that name right, Jesse Buring, author of The Sexual Deviant in All of Us, writes that people with pedophilia aren't living their lives in the closet. They're internally hunkered down in a panic room. End quote. While treatment cannot eliminate a pedophile's sexual interest, a combination of cognitive behavior therapy and medication can help him manage his urges and avoid committing crimes. But the reason we do not know enough efficient treatment is because research is usually limited to those who have committed crimes. I just want to make a comment real quick about them saying that pedophilia is more of a biological thing. I'm not a doctor and I'm not a psychiatrist, but I do know that most people who commit sex crimes are doing it because in their early age, in their childhood, sex crimes were committed on them. So that didn't change their biology. That's probably a psychological thing that they're doing because they've been psychologically damaged because it happened to them. So I believe, and I'm not saying this off of any evidence, but I believe, based off of what I know, that the crimes that they're committing is due to a psychological issue that they're going through, not more so a biological one. Now, there might be some biological difference or something like that. It can be possible, but the way the article is making it seem like it's you're just born a pedophile, and I do not believe that's the case. It goes on to say, our current law is inconsistent and irrational. For example, federal law in 20 states allow courts to issue civil orders committing a sex offender, particularly one with a diagnosis of pedophilia, to a mental health facility immediately after completion of his sentence. Understandings that are much more lax for ordinary civil commitments for people with mental illness. And yet, when it comes to the public policies that might help people with pedophilia to come forward and seek treatment before they offend, the laws omit pedophilia from protection. The Americans with Disability Act in the 1990s of Section 504, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, prohibits discrimination against otherwise qualified individuals with mental health disabilities in areas such as employment, education, and medical care. Congress, however, explicitly excluded pedophilia from protection under these two crucial laws. Okay, this is them saying that pedophiles need to be protected. This is them trying to argue for pedophile rights. They're being subtle. I hope you guys are catching that. It is time for us to revisit these categorical conclusions. Without legal protection, a pedophile cannot risk seeking treatment or disclosing his status to anyone for support. He could lose his job and future job prospects if he is seen in a group therapy session, asks for reasonable accommodations to take medicine or see a psychiatrist, or request a limit to his interaction with children. Isolating individuals from appropriate employment and treatment only increases their risk of committing crime. We're almost done with this article. There is no question that the intention of civil rights protections to people with pedophilia must be weighed against the health and safety needs of others, especially kids. It stands to reason that a pedophile should not be hired as a grade school teacher, but both the ADA and the Rehabilitation Act contains exceptions for people who are, quote, not otherwise qualified for the job or who pose a, quote, direct threat to health and safety of others, end quote. That cannot be eliminated by a reasonable accommodation. The direct threat analyst rejects the idea that an employer can rely on generalizations. They must assess the specific case and rely on evidence, not those who worry that employers will be compelled to hire dangerous pedophiles should look to HIV case laws, where for a few courts were highly conservative, erring on the side of finding a direct threat even into late 1990s, when medical authorities were in agreement that people with HIV could work safely in, for example, food services. Okay. Removing the pedophilia exclusion would not undermine criminal justice or its role in responding to child abuse. It would not make it easier, for example, for someone accused of child molestation to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. A pedophile should be held responsible for his conduct, but not for the underlying attraction. Arguing for the rights of scorned and misunderstood groups is never popular. Scorned and misunderstood groups, y'all. Just keep that in mind. But the fact that pedophilia is so despised is precisely why our responses to it in criminal cases and mental health have been so. Acknowledging the fact that pedophiles have mental disorders and removing the obstacles to their coming forward and seeking help is not only the right thing to do, but it would also advance efforts to protect children from harm. This article is from Slate.com, and I will link it in the description below. On Sunday, HBO premieres Leaving Neverland, a documentary that tells the story of two men who said that they were repeatedly sexually assaulted by Michael Jackson while they were children. The new retconning, because they did say that it didn't happen, now years later they said it did, the new retconning arises a particularly risky question. Should pedophilia be treated as a sickness or punished as a crime? After Michael Jackson was charged with several counts of child molestation, trying to pronounce this name right, Dyla Kick, I guess. Anyway, looked into researching to try to find the answers to the question. Okay. And it goes on. Again, for all the wrong reasons, we can take our eyes off of Michael Jackson. For all the wrong reasons. Okay. Again, for all the wrong reasons, we can take our eyes off of Michael Jackson. Whether or not the allegations are substantiated, the question is in the air. Is pedophilia a disease to be treated or a crime to be punished? Are people who seduce minors sick or evil? What type of question? First, what type of questions? But, okay, let's go. Are people who seduce minors sick or evil? Our legal and medical system blurs both views. We call for the most draconian punishments, life imprisonment, castration, permanent exile, precisely because we view these acts as morally heinous, but also driven by uncontrollable biological urges. Now here they go with the biological thing again. Just pay attention to that. Now I'm not going to be reading this entire thing because I don't want this video to be super long. but I am going to give you guys the key points I want you guys to pay attention to. If sex with children is truly the product of freely made moral choices, then we should deal with it through the criminal justice system. But if it is a genetically overdetermined impulse, a uncontrollable urge nestled in our DNA, then punishing pedophiles must be morally wrong. Punishing pedophiles must be morally wrong. As science and culture increasingly medicalizes bad behavior, finding a neurological component to everything from alcoholism to youth violence, as we run parallel risks of either absolving everyone and everything or punishing, quote, criminals who are no guiltier than cancer patients. What science has revealed about the moral and medical roots of pedophiles is, of course, ambiguous. What is clear is that the binary choice laid out above is an oversimplification. The medical community, which started to view pedophilia as a disease rather than a crime in the 19th century, has immense evidence that at least one violent and antisocial behavior have genetic links and signposts, or even to agree on a personality profile. Not to mention the traffic confusion within the medical community in defining what this disease, quote, really involves. A few years ago, for example, the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders, defined pedophilia as a disease only if the sufferer fantasizes sexual urges or behaviors causing clinical significant distress or impairment in social, occupation, and other important areas of functioning. In other words, a non-impaired or remorseless pedophile was apparently perfectly healthy. Okay. Now I'm going to skip down for a moment so we can speed things. I'm going to skip down for a moment so this doesn't drag. But it says, assume for a moment that we are sophisticated enough to embrace this ambiguity, to accept the likelihood that the reality is complicated, and that both chemistry and morality are at work in the creation of a sex predator. Studies at Stanford University neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky, I think I'm saying that name right, Sapolsky, suggests that mental illness really falls along a continuum. That criminals are not sick or evil, but some intricate combination of both. What then is the moral and proper approach for these acts? Skipping down even further we go. If the repercussions of the act urges for holding the predators morally responsible, regardless of levels of agency. Agency means the ability to choose your own actions. So this article is pretty much trying to say, and you can read it for yourself, but this article is pretty much trying to say that if you have an urge, you can't control your actions. Okay, let's keep going. Regardless of their levels of agency, then the seriousness of the punishment pulls the other direction. Holding alcoholics morally responsible for their actions, that there they are comparing pedophilia to alcoholism again. I want you guys to pay attention to those two things, two different articles saying the same thing. Holding alcoholics morally responsible for their actions has predominantly insurance and employment consequences. Holding a child molester responsible for his actions means lifetime in incarceration or monitoring unemployment and shaming. Oh man, that's just so bad. Okay, but keep going. Offenders registries are certainly an alternative to the forms of volantism, but the practical effect is a whole subclass of offenders with nowhere to live or work. If science someday proves us wrong, pedophiles are wholesome victims of their own biology. Now, do you know the theme? They're saying victimize, victimize. You're treating them unfairly as if we're doing something wrong, when back in a previous article, and like I keep saying, this is why I read that one first, it stated that there was places they can go. So necessarily it's not illegal. You can be a pedophile and you can get treatment and help for it. But this, oh, we're punishing them, we're doing them harsh. Them being a pedophile is the same as somebody being an alcoholic. Okay, no, just notice that theme in two completely different articles. Okay, now time to move on to the last article. Okay, so in this one, I'm gonna read bits and pieces because it's not really the same. It's a lot of questions and then they answer the questions. But this article is from dr.ndtv.com. It says, first of all, what is pedophilia? Now, before I've already previously established what the DSM-5 has defined as pedophilia, so I'm not gonna reread that. But it goes on to say, pedophilia is not the same as child sex abuse. What people fail to keep in mind is that pedophilia is not the same as child sex abuse. It is quite common for pedophiles to feel attracted to a child, but not to act on it. These are the kinds that know that their attraction to prepubescent children is wrong and they do not act on it. Pedophilia is not an act. Sexual assault is. This incorrect use of the term pedophilia. Now, notice how I keep saying they're trying to change how we view the term pedophilia. Let's go back. This incorrect use of the term pedophilia needs to be avoided because although people who commit child sex abuse are sometimes pedophiles, the meaning of the term does not concentrate on it. Not all people who have sexually abused children are pedophiles. Notice the articles keep saying that too. Only when an offender has a primary or exclusive sexual interest in prepubescent children is when he can be called a pedophile. Okay, notice what they said, primary and exclusive. So that means if that's your main or only preference. So if you're a side pedophile, if you like prepubescent children on the side, on like you prefer adults but you like them too, you can't be called a pedophile according to what this article is saying. Researchers have also shown that pedophiles do not molest children. Many child molesters do not have strong sexual interest in prepubescent children. They are consequently not pedophiles. Okay, we're almost done. I'm gonna just read these two questions and these two more paragraphs and that'll be it for the articles. Pedophilia is not a choice. It goes to say, no one with a morally correct background chooses to become a pedophile. It is not in one's hands who they are sexually attracted to. Pedophilia develops with age and is generally self-discovered. It is not, by any chance, a choice. It is a disorder of sexual preference and is phenomenologically similar to heterosexual and homosexual orientation. But pedophilic acts can cause harm. The best way to deal with it is to refrain from it and go to a therapist. Notice in the first article it states that most of their evidence is from people who have committed sex crimes. And now they're trying to say pedophiles and sex crimes, they're not the same thing. Notice how all these articles keep saying, oh, you know, people molest children and then pedophiles, they're completely different things. They're completely different things. But they won't know that because the people who are pedophiles, the innocent pedophiles, they have very little amount of them, or they have very little amount that they know of, because those people stay on the low. So these people are trying to separate the term pedophilia and child molestation. Goes on to say, what causes pedophilia? Studies show that pedophilia can be the result of a brain's failure to recognize which environmental stimuli should provoke a sexual response in the body. That sounds very similar to what we've already read. Alright, the MRIs of sex offenders show fewer neural pathways known as white matter in the brains. Tell me if this is deja vu, I'm not sure. Now I want you guys to remember what I said about them studying from people who have committed sex crimes, and that pedophilia is more likely to be psychological than biological. I'm not a doctor or anything, so I don't want people to come, you're not a doctor or a therapist, but it would make sense that it's more psychological because the human body is naturally made to reproduce with another adult. Not biology, but prepubescent children can't do that. So naturally, you shouldn't be attracted to a prepubescent child. It's more likely that it's a psychological thing because you were damaged as a child most of the time. It is also seen that pedophilia is more common in men than women. This can be a wrong assumption to make, as not many people who have this disorder come forward with it because of the fear of society and because of the fear of being mistaken for a child sex offender. This is why tendencies of pedophilia and its treatments are limited to sex offenders only. What do I keep telling you guys? They're trying to say that, oh man, pedophilia is not really that bad. People who have suffered from pedophilia, we should feel sorry for them and we should treat them. And most people who commit sex crimes, most people who commit child molestation aren't pedophiles, but the only evidence we have are from people who have committed sex crimes. Notice something else that they're not saying too. They're not saying that it is a psychological thing. They're not even implying that it could be a psychological thing. They're saying this is a pure biological thing. They're not saying that, you know, most of the time if a person who was molested as a child might grow up and become a molester. None of these articles have mentioned that one single time or even hinted to it. They're trying to make it seem like it's a total biological thing. This is for the purpose of us feeling that they have absolutely no choice and that we are bad for punishing them because biologically they are just attracted to who they're attracted to and they can't help it. Now remember what I said about people who are powerful having a lot of influence? Let's look at Amazon. I'm not going to read the article, but I am going to show you guys this. Amazon gets blasted for selling disgusting pedophile onesies. One of the onesies says, "Daddy's little fuck toy." The other one says, "I just look illegal." These are baby clothes. Clothes that you would put on a baby. That's saying, "I just look illegal and I'm a little fuck toy." Let's take another look at something Amazon has done. Amazon has recently come out with a film about pedophilia. Quote, Amazon has also come out with a film about pedophilia. It is I, Pedophile, Understanding the Mental Disorder. The description goes, pedophiles have long been the most demonized people in society. New research is showing that understanding the condition and addressing it are the first steps to lowering instances of child sex abuse. This documentary does not seek to vilify or condemn pedophiles or to undermine the concerns and fears of parents or society, but rather to understand pedophilia and its complex causes. Now, you guys are going to be seeing a lot more of these articles and these movies and things like that pop up. But now you guys know that this is the first part, or not the first part, but this is one end of the candle that they're burning so they can open the door to pedophilia. I'm not going to make this video too long. There's going to be a part 2, and that's going to be the over-sexualization of children. But this is the watering down of the term pedophilia. I want you guys to pay attention to everything that was said in this video. Notice how all of the articles seem to match up almost identically, and even the description of the Amazon movie is pretty much the same as what the articles were saying. It's almost as if they have this general script that they're given and they have to write about. It's very interesting. But I'm not going to get into conspiracies. I just notice a coincidence when I see one. But keep your kids safe. Keep all kids safe. Not just your kids, but any kid. Please keep them safe. Like, comment, and subscribe. Be ready for part 2 because it's coming soon. Thank you.